All right, guys, this is going to be a walk around video of this 2007 Subaru STI that I have for sale. It's not a perfect STI, however, I have it priced pretty good for what its true value is, you know, if it was super clean. But we're going to go around and just go over in detail of everything that's wrong with the car, so you know what you're looking at. I make these videos mainly because I have a lot of out-of-state clients, and you know, I look for stuff that you don't find every day. Nothing too crazy, but you know, Subarus and Evos, something you don't come across all the time. So enjoy the video. Let's get started. So this car it had on Carfax 3 very minor accident reports. I'll tell you on my eye that there is paintwork on the car. It does not look bad though. It matches really well. But I can tell you the front bumper was replaced, the hood was replaced and repainted, hood scoop was repainted. Exterior wise is what we're going to go over first. So on the front bumper, what stands out is these clips. They don't sit fully flush. Not sure why exactly, but I know from owning so many Subarus, it's very common for these clips to break and they don't sit super flush. There is a way to fix it. We'll talk about that at the end. There are some dents on the side, like we have one right here, a couple right here on the door. And then we'll go back here on this quarter. We have 2 paint chips. However, it's not dented. And keep in mind, this is only surface rust. This is not eating away in the body. This car is actually fairly clean. So on this end, we have a dent right here, right by the headlight, and it's got the paint chipped away. Rear bumper has little spiderweb cracks. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. Some I would just leave it on there. It's not really worth the fix. The car's got a little fade only on the roof and the rear spoiler. The hood scoop does not have any fade. This is common with the age on these cars. They see a lot of sun. The paint that comes on these plastics, they're not the best, as well as on the roof. This actually might be able to get buffed out. The fade isn't terrible, but you can see it in certain lighting. But other than that, the paint on the rest of the car looks fantastic. More on the exterior, there's a couple little door dings, as you can see. The metal on these cars is super thin. And please understand that I've owned a lot of these personally. That's why I know so much about these Subarus, so I can kind of go in depth with certain things on the car. And the only thing left on the exterior would be this windshield. It's got a crack in it right there. Is it the original windshield? No, this windshield's been replaced already. So on the interior, just like the exterior, it's not totally perfect, but overall it's pretty good. The seats, they all look good. They're not super worn. The steering wheel looks really nice too. Dash isn't cracked or anything. Now, when I first got this car, the radio wasn't working, so I ended up spending a couple hours trying to figure it out and wiring up, and got it to work, but learned that I think someone got really upset and they punched the screen. So you have that going on. Awesome, right? Also, that we have in the interior, at one time this lower piece has been taken down, and you're gonna have to makeshift or do something to get this part to fit all the way back up flush. So that's another thing with the interior. It's probably the worst part about the interior, is that piece hangs down just a little bit. You may just leave it, you know, it may not bother you. We have some A-pillar gauges. One of them is missing. And we also have gauges right here on the steering wheel, but these do work. You have a boost gauge and a water temp. So there's that. Show you more around. This is an 07. So 07 is arguably, well, you know, depending on some, it's known as the best year for the STI, just because it has the long gearing compared to the 04 to 06. Fourth gear, I think you can do like 130, 135 at the top of fourth, which is pretty nice. You got your DC CD controller, your center diff adjustment. Your glove box, got some wires and stuff in there. Oh, and the car's got an access port. It's got a version 2. Currently on the car, it's got a Arizona, Cali, and Nevada 91 base map, standard wastegate, or low wastegate. No check engine lights. We'll start it up right here. Car fires right up. It runs good. It pulls real good. But as I said in my ad, the turbo seals are starting to leak, and the way you know that is after you drive it for a while. Sometimes it'll do it, sometimes it won't. When you start it up, it'll have a little bit of oil. I was notified by the seller that the turbo was going bad. So on that matter, I ended up getting a replacement VF32 that's gonna go with this car. That way, when you get it, all you have to do is pay someone to install it. You can drive the car the way it is. It feels like all the power is there, but over time, eventually the seals are going to totally let go and it's going to smoke quite a bit. That's kind of another reason why the car is priced so cheap. Not a big job, but it's going to cost a little bit of money to do it. As far as the interior as well, this thing did have a sound system in it. It still does. I removed some of the stuff that was in it because I figured it wasn't the best option to have. It had a secondary battery, and yes, the latch isn't connected on this. It had a secondary battery with a converter, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. But we had a secondary battery sitting right here, wired up in this giant ground. So you're gonna have to get the speakers to work, run a smaller ground from the battery, hook it up to this amp. All your speaker wires are set up to it, and that will give you the power to the amp, and it'll give you sound to the speakers, as well as you got to plug it in the front. The guy had to have a sub. He probably had a pretty big sub in it. It's sound editing done. But if you're an audio person, this is easy cake for you because all the speakers are still pre-wired. So I'll show you what was in the trunk that it took out. And it looks like a freaking bomb. You have this guy right here, the converter. Kind of gives the amp a little bit extra juice while the car's running. It's not taking all the power away. And the secondary battery. And then you have another amp. All that will go with it. I don't want it. You can have it. But I'm just letting you know what was in it. Tires are like brand new on this car, or close to it. They got a lot of life left on them. And that's it for the interior. It's got these buttons that do not shoot any missiles out. We don't know what they go to. I think he had some lighting on it at one time and took them out. So next thing to go over is what's done to the car. Well, for your Subaru nuts, I guess you can say it's stage 2. Has intake, downpipe, and exhaust, and a tune. This is the engine bay. Has the K&N Typhoon intake, Mishimoto aluminum radiator, and the downpipe and stock injectors. Nothing too crazy. It's still got the air pump in it. This car does pass emissions 100% here. Not sure about where you live for you out-of-state buyers, but Arizona emissions is very simple. We just go in on the OBD2. So there are a few little bolts that have some surface rust on it, but like I said, overall this car is really clean. It came out of North Carolina, but there's no body rust. If you get under it, it's pretty impressive for where it came out of. So you have these 2 bolts on these radiator support brackets that have some rust on them, and then these are for aftermarket hood struts that no longer exist on the car. So that's the way it is. If you actually look at everything else, like normal bolts, there's no corrosion on it, and that's a good thing to see. Now another thing, when I had this car first, the secondary radiator fan wasn't kicking on. It wasn't overheating, but it was running around 215, 220 coolant temp. Ended up finding out it was just a blown fuse, so I replaced that. Car runs really good right now, really cold. We live in Arizona and it's 120 the worst time out here, and I had it out there when it was that hot, and the car stayed really cool, so that's good. Now, the car was in an accident, like I said. This front, whatever you would call it, the support for the radiator, there's a dent in it. This is still the original piece. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. The car does not have frame damage. I repeat, does not have frame damage. But that shroud right there was it has a little bit of damage on it. You could put a cooling plate over it, like Perrin makes. Grimsby, they make these coolant plate covers that cover it up. I was gonna do that, but I'd rather have the owner be aware that that's there, so there's no surprises. I'm very upfront about everything. Another thing that I had to fix on this car was the headlights weren't working, so I had my mechanic go through and rewire them. So I will show you what those fancy headlights look like. HID with projector bulbs, or projectors with HID bulbs. Looks good. They are aftermarket. I'm assuming the factory ones were replaced. Now the car runs and drives great. It's not super loud. It's got the Cobb catback. It's one of the quieter aftermarket exhausts for this car. However, if you want something a little bit louder, go with like NVIDIA in one race if you want to get real loud. I will say the car has an aftermarket clutch. It is stiff, so just be aware. And factory clutch, I mean, you can't really expect it to be at this miles now. What else? Transmission's just great, no grinds, any of that stuff. So no leaks on this car. We did fresh service on it. Got Valvoline VR1 oil. So it's a little hot out here in Arizona, so we put a little bit thicker oil in these cars. But other than that, this thing is everything that I just described. No surprises on this one. This is why I make these videos, just so I can disclose everything. Thanks for watching.